All things hinge on the past. Nostalgia is one of the greatest forms of propaganda, and the Nazis took this to the extreme. Through nostalgia, we recreate the past by only seeing the good or pleasant events. We never bring up the unpleasant or bad events that happened, and as a result, the past becomes a faux reality. This faux reality represents the ideal of what life could be and should be. The key to Hitler's happiness can be found in his past dealings with his mother and the opera. He would recount it many times during his life before and after becoming Der Führer. It was this nostalgic view of the past that Hitler used as a propaganda tool which to convince the German people that changes needed to be made in order to return Germany to glory. For us to understand how nostalgia works, let us take a brief stroll through what modernism is and its changes through time. Modernism was a break from historical and mythical subjects. It reflected the time's thinking, that the overemphasis of the past and mythos was tired and worn out. The modernist movement is credited with Edouard Monet when he painted a realistic image of everyday life. Soon other artists followed and moved away from the idealistic countrysides and glorified imagings of the past to painting people and landscapes as they are. Modernist art moved along in spurts when artists attempting to express the world around them, inform the viewer of fences, and reveal inner consciousness would mimic and alter other artistic styles. As modernism evolved, it went through many changes and is still evolving today. This slide is done in a data style showing the timelines and occurrences of modernist art. Hitler's nostalgic vision of the future could not be possible if people were allowed to think and act for themselves. It was imperative to control how and what people thought if they were to succeed in its quest for the glorious rebirth of Germany. The modernist art was of particular interest to Hitler, not only because it was free thinking, but because it also was a sore reminder that he could not succeed as an artist. This art form must be stopped. It was an affront to all things German and was clearly a way for communists, Jews, and other deviants to succeed ahead of the moral and just German. Hitler's Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels, came up with the idea of hosting a degenerate art exhibit to show what happens when people are allowed to think for themselves, that without loving but stern guidance of the Nazi Party, your mind will degenerate into madness. On this slide are Hitler's paintings. You can see the idealistic view of the world around him. Die Entartete Kunst was a success, but not in the way Hitler thought. It ran from the 19th of July to the 30th of November in 1937. 2 million people attended the exhibit, 1 million in the first 6 weeks alone. School children were encouraged to go to see what corrupted art looks like, but people secretly went to the art exhibit because they thought it would be the last time that anyone would be able to see this specific art. Van Gogh, Picasso, and Dali are just some of the famous artists whose works were displayed. Among the living artists were Klee, Moreau, Ernst, and Nobel, who not only had their artwork displayed, but were also persecuted. Because Hitler had already burned books, the Germans and other people feared the worst and attended not only once, but multiple times with the thought, will this be the last time I see these types of art? This slide shows how many people wanted to see this art, perhaps for the very last time. Looking at the artwork that was displayed often brought confusion because Goebbels had the artwork arranged haphazardly in small, cramped spaces. His aim was to make it as unappealing as possible. Sculptures and drawings were interweaved between paintings. A huge sculpture was displayed at the entrance so that people had to duck in order to enter. The artwork were both from the past and the present. The current modern artist had to quit producing art completely, paint in a Nazi-approved style, or flee the country. Among the ones that had to conform was Otto Dix, who painted in meticulous accuracy of the countryside so there would be no reason for the Nazis to persecute him. After the show was over, the artwork was sold. That which could not be sold was destroyed. The photograph in the left is of the carved wooden statue blocking the entrance, and the photograph on the right is the artwork of Otto Dix and his depiction of what war really brings. Otto and other Germans felt that Expressionism was a true German style, but the Nazi Party members in power felt it was also a form of degradation by contamination. The display had words written between, around, and on the artwork. This was done as a conscientious reminder that this type of artwork not only is unacceptable, it's downright dangerous. However, it also became a form of degenerate art in its own right. It looks at home among the modern art. The data art displayed almost seems enhanced by the Nazi propagandic statements and imagery. It created a flow throughout the entire exhibit and unifying the artist and their work. Rather than making the art repelling, they instead made the artwork intriguing. Inside the Entité. In this slide, we see how Goebbels had the artwork crowded together in an attempt to make it an unpleasant experience. As you can see, the words are flowing around some of the artwork, and in the photograph on the left, it blends in with the data art. After the degenerate art exhibit, it was time to display what true German artists could produce. Die große deutsche Kunstausstellung was now open. Hitler's high hope for this exhibit fell short. Only 600,000 people attended. Sculptures, paintings, and drawings were done in the classical style with glorified depictions. It looked like a museum stacked full of old classical images and statues. The idealized view of a futuristic envisioned by Hitler and taken up by his followers. The Nazis did everything in their power to achieve this vision, this faux reality. This slide shows how the different art exhibits were marketed. The poster on the left is the Great German Art Exhibit, and the poster on the right is the Degenerate Art Exhibit. Idealistic German countrysides, heroic depictions of soldier, and ideal German family home life became the propagandic pictures to invoke the nostalgia of the past and promote the vision of the future. This is where nostalgia has led the Nazi Party. The false belief that if we return to our past, a past that is not depicted correctly, we can regain not only our pride, honor, and glory, but we can carry these values into the future for all German posterity. Propagandic images of idealistic German and heroic Germans. The image in the upper left is another painting by Hitler. You can see how he depicts an idyllic view of the countryside. Due to his turbulent past, it is easy to see how he would want a stable and highly structured government to help the German people from suffering like he did, or at least like he imagined he did. The ideal family is the key to German success. The poster depicting the perfect German family was to show that you can do your part in bringing Germany back its right. Resistance is not futile. Though the artists were forbidden to create modernistic art, that did not stop some. They continued to create art, and in some cases, like the Nazi Party member Nolde, painted in a different medium so as not to give away what he was doing to his neighbors. Others secreted their artwork out of the country and held it in trust until they could be returned safely. The Nazis did not stop degenerate artwork in occupied territories, and as a result, modernistic artwork was sold in the centers of towns and villages. Those soldiers that did not see the harm in some of the paintings would purchase them for their own collection. The White Rose Society and the University of Munich used graffiti as a form of resistance and to hold the Nazis accountable for their crimes against people. Some of the members served on the front and witnessed firsthand the atrocities committed against the Polish. The left image is one couple that exchanged their personal correct paintings for degenerate paintings, so the Nazis could not destroy them. The middle picture is by Nolde, one of his watercolors after he was forbidden to paint anymore. The image on the right shows how the White Rose Society would spray paint the word Freiheit on walls expressing freedom for all. In the end, the propagandic tools used by the Nazis still carry long and lasting effects even until today. But many strides are being made into breaking the false beliefs presented by this propaganda. The museum, which once housed the Great German Art Exhibit, now displays the very degenerate artwork that Hitler and the Nazi Party tried to eradicate. Hitler's artwork is also being sold at auction. While this seems contrary, the intended purpose is to keep history intact, unlike Hitler and his party. Germany has openly admitted to the crimes that is making restitution. Adenauer, the first German chancellor since the World War II ended, was sure that unless they admitted to their crimes, they could never recover from their guilt. He negotiated a retribution plan with Israel that is still being paid into today. Nazi propaganda against deviant art, however, only discouraged people from participating in the acts, as most Germans thought of art as non-threatening. This slide shows us, on the left, the museum that once housed the Great German Exhibit, and on the right, the same museum now housing Degererate art. The museum tried to host as many of the original paintings, sculptures, books, and drawings as they could. My reference slide is also done in the data style. Thank you for listening to this presentation.